Hey everybody, this is Bobby Harbert from Sister to Sister International Network of Professional African American Women, Inc., better known as Sister to Sister, Inc., and you're listening to the Sisters Excel podcast. This show focuses on our guests' lived experiences, their lives from where they came from, and the impact they've had in their communities and beyond. This podcast is for everyone, and especially Black women and girls from all walks of life, where we focus on standing together, building communities of sisterhood, and realizing endless potential. Our mission is to advance equity in all aspects of Black women and girls' lives through community, vital education, scholarship, social connectivity, emotional support, networking, and forums to showcase their creativity in a global environment. Our purpose is to extend authentic sisterhood throughout the world through nurturing communities wherein Black females are respected, recognized, encouraged, supported, and loved, enabling them to thrive. Today's podcast is titled Following Your Passions and Dreams with our guest, Patricia Duncan. Patricia Pat Duncan was born and raised in Denver, Colorado, and has built an impressive career on the premise of following her passions and dreams. This includes becoming a flight attendant with Braniff International Airways, as well as serving in consumer relations positions with Federal Express and several professional sports organizations such as the United States Football League, Bill Pickett Invitational Rodeo, Denver Nuggets, and the Colorado Rockies. She's also an event planner and a business owner. Patricia also holds a strong passion for community building and event planning and has a long history of successfully hosting and organizing functions for family, friends, and local community organizations. This led her to form her own company, Ijaba Event Planning, Inc., in 2001. Ijaba means a wish fulfilled. Establishing her own company and serving as chief executive officer and president of Ijaba was truly a fulfillment of wishes for Patricia. As most entrepreneurs are aware, the establishment of a new business is a daunting task. Because of this, Pat embraced the advice of her late sister, Vicki Buckley, Colorado's first African-American Secretary of State. If you have a dream and a goal, you must go after it. Stay focused. Accept the good with the bad. You may get knocked back down 2 steps before you can take 1 step forward, but don't quit. If you work hard and keep God first in your life, you will persevere. This advice stayed with Patricia and continues to propel her forward. Mrs. Patricia Duncan, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much for having me today, Bobby.
Pat, as we've learned a bit about many of your ventures, tell us a little bit about yourself and some things that I may not have mentioned in your bio.
Pretty much everyone was said, except for I am a proud Denver Public School graduate. I graduated from Denver South in 1974, so I just celebrated my 50th class reunion.
Wow.
Which was bittersweet, because we've lost quite a few of our class members. But just seeing people that you haven't seen in all these years and talking to them was just a great time. I started the company, Ijaba, 2 years after my sister passed away. She always used to say to me, Tricia, you need to start a company. My family name is Tricia. And she said, you need to start a company, an event planning company. And I said, oh, Vicki, I have time. Well, she died before I was able to start the company. She died on July 14th, 1999, and I started the company in 2001.
Okay. And I was going to definitely ask you a little bit about dig a little bit deeper into some of your ventures that you've done and businesses and things like that. So will you tell the audience how many companies do you actually own?
So right now I own two companies. My first company is Ijaba Event Planning, and under that comes Ijaba Publishing, which we'll talk a little bit more later. Pat Duncan Photography. I am an award-winning photographer, and then under PSS Publishing, which we'll talk about that. Um, that's my second company. So I own two companies.
Awesome. All right. And let's track back for just a moment. So you've published, you have a publishing company, and you've published your first book, which was called A Defining Moment, and it was actually nominated for the NAACP Image Award in 2012 and inducted into the Library of Congress in 2013. So will you tell us just a little bit about that book, for example, like what was your impetus for writing the book? And then, how did you go about in putting all the pieces together to put that book together?
So growing up, I always had a camera, and so my first event to introduce Ijaba event planning, I had a photographer who came and took pictures of all the people and the centerpieces and things like that. So I asked him, and his name is Herbert Buddy Baker, if he would teach me photography. And he said, I will. And so off we went on this journey of teaching me photography. So time went on, and he would come back and he would say, your pictures are blurry, you have too much ceiling, you got to work on it. And I'm like, no, maybe it's just not meant for me to be a photographer. And he said to me, I'm not going to allow you to give up on you. And that was 19 years ago.
Awesome.
I started being a contributing photographer, the Black newspapers, Urban Spectrum, Denver Weekly News, African American Voice. Well, now we're coming up on Barack Obama running for president. And even though I had started a company, I had never finished a project. And so one day I was going through all the hundreds of pictures that I have of President Obama, and I said, I know exactly what I'm going to do to finish a project. I'm going to do a book, and it's going to be on Barack Obama. So I started the publishing company in 2008, and off I went. Well, it took me 2.5 years to finish the book. And the reason being is I didn't have confidence in myself. I didn't have self-belief in myself. And so I would start and I would quit. And I would start and I would quit. And everybody that was in the book, they did it all for free because I didn't have any money. But they wanted to be a part of the journey, of that historic journey.
Tell me, what did you find some of the challenges that you experienced as you were working with your Ijaba publishing company or getting that, off the ground?
Well, the biggest challenge was, of course, getting the book printed. That is the biggest challenge. And so I put together a letter and I started asking investors to invest in my dream. And they did. And so I was able to get enough investors to get the book printed. And so I would go, my mother was in hospice, and I would go every day and I would work on the book, work on the pictures. This book is a pictorial. And so it's pictures supported by President Obama's speeches. And so I would work on the pictures, editing them. And my mom would say, okay, Tricia, no longer Obama time, it's Ruby time. So I would, put down the book and I would entertain my mom. So on August 15th in 2010, I told my mom that I had finished my part of the book. And she said, oh, Tricia, I'm so proud of you. She said, I know when it comes out, it's going to come out in grand fashion. And my mom passed away on August 23rd, 2010. So we finished working on the book. We went to print. The book came actually to my home, what they call a preview copy, in February of 2011. And all I remember, I was just screaming at the top of my head. And all I kept saying is, I finished it. I finally have finished a project.
Great.
And I can hold my dream in my hand.
Thank you for sharing. We're going to talk a little bit about trying to encourage our audience to have hope in themselves and belief in themselves, because many people have desires to accomplish certain things. So I'm very appreciative that you are forthright and you're talking about you didn't have, but you would not know that if you look at the work that you've done. I've looked at your work on it. In fact, I have some of your work in my own home, but it shows confidence to me. And so I find that interesting that you had to sort of develop that over time to teach yourself and make yourself that you could actually accomplish those books.
Oh, and there was one thing that is probably the most important of it all, is that I reinvented myself, or I gained all of this confidence at 55 years old.
Mm-hmm. And that's amazing, because a lot of our audience are mature women. And so this is good for them, for you to share this with them. So, let's talk a little bit about defining the times, living life with hope, compassion, and change. And this book is actually ready for you to publish, and it's ready to go to print. Let's just talk a little bit about that for the audience.
My books, to make it just really simple, all of my books have been printed, and when they sell out, they go out of print. So unfortunately, to the audience, you can't get a defining moment. And so Defining the Times is the new book, and it is 388 pages, and it is, in my eyes, the most complete journey of Barack Obama. My book is, what I did is I paired my images with his speeches. So we go on a journey. So we have been on this journey now for 8 years. And so it has like speeches from Newtown and speech on the Pettus Bridge, the 50th anniversary of the Pettus Bridge. So it is ready to be printed, but unfortunately, having all colored pictures makes the printing very expensive. So I'm just sitting on it and hoping that maybe one day I can figure out a way to get it printed, because it is a masterpiece.
It sounds like that would be an amazing treasure to have. Absolutely. Any time frame on when you might be able to make that available for us to purchase?
Well, I found one other. Actually, I found two other printers, and we're going to see what they're going to cost, or if I can, say buy 100 at a time. So, sell 100, get it printed, instead of having to get a big bulk of them printed. So I'm trying, because like I said, there's no books out like my book.
Mm-hmm.
And it's factual, because it's President Obama's words, or it's Congressman Lewis's word. And I don't know, maybe somebody that's listening to this call may have an idea.
Absolutely, because I've been kind of thinking in my head, maybe getting involved with possible other nonprofit organizations that want to be a part of it to help get the word out, or some of the political organizations. So that's just something for you to kind of think about, and maybe our audience has some suggestions as well. So let's now, you've told us about your first publishing company, Ijaba Publishing, but tell us why you started the second publishing company.
Okay.
And also, excuse me, but also, what does the title mean? And then how many books have you published? We want to know about those.
So it's P.S. Publishing LLC. So the initials are I'm Pat, My oldest daughter is Shania, and my youngest daughter is Shira. And when I looked at it, it reminded me of writing a letter. And at the end, if you forgot something, you put PS.
That's right.
And if you forgot something else, you put PSS. So
That's right.
that is where the name and why I came up with that name. So I have a really good friend, and we were talking about everything as we do, and he was talking about a book that he had written a book. I said, you've written a book? And he said, yeah. He said, I've been sitting on it for 8 years. I said, I'll tell you what. I said, if you let me publish your book, then I'll start a publishing company. So he did. So he let me publish his book. And then his book came out in 2022. So PSS is to publish other authors' books.
Mm-hmm.
Ijaba was strictly about me. That was the selfish. This is about Patricia. And so I have 1, 2, 3 new authors under PSS. Matter of fact, my one author writes books for teenagers. So he is now on his second book, so I can't wait to read that. It's just amazing how he thinks of this novel. His first one is about a basketball player. And he's playing in a basketball game, and he gets knocked out, and he goes back into time, into slavery.
Mm.
So it's like, how did you come up with this? And so, so we have one book is called Multicultural, and what that is stories of people in corporate America and what they have to deal with as being a person of color.
Mm-hmm.
And then one's a cookbook, and then one's a children's book.
Nice. Very good. Now let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about the nonprofit work that you're involved in, the fellowship community of Vicki Buckley. Tell us about Vicki Buckley and the mission of the nonprofit.
I am so proud to be the sister of the Honorable Victoria Vicki Buckley. My sister was the first Black Secretary of State of Colorado. And yes, she was a Republican, and people are saying why. And the reason why is back in 94, you could not be a Democrat and win a statewide race.
Mm.
My sister started working at the Secretary of State in 1974, and she became Secretary of State in 1994. So she did amazing things in the 4.5 years that she was in office. And then unfortunately, she died on July 14th, 1999. And so it has taken me 25 years to get this nonprofit, which I am still at the bottom, working my way up of getting it done. And so I'll just read you the long part of it because I'm learning how to condense it. So Vicki's life was like, she got shot, domestic violence, she was on welfare. Unfortunately, she had a traumatic life, and against all odds, she rose to the top.
Mm.
And that is what the nonprofit is about. So it's the mission of the fellowship community of Vicki Buckley is to embrace, encourage, and empower Black girls and women within the Black community who live traumatic lives by providing programs to enhance opportunities for mental health, therapy, field trips, educational workshops. It will provide life skills, coping mechanisms, and resources to mitigate past trauma and current trauma-related events in their lives.
Okay.
Take that life, and we want to turn it back into a self-love life.
Okay. Now this program sounds like something that would be a nice collaboration with Sister International Network, because we do a lot of I mean, we are for women and about women. So we'll talk offline about this to see how we might be able to get some partnerships created along that way.
I love it.
Yes, absolutely. So, our country is coming off the heels of what seemed like an endless presidential campaign, the election of a new president, and now we're in just about over the first 30 days of this new presidency. Tell us about the campaign Making My Vote Count and the grant funds that you were awarded for that particular campaign.
So it was the idea of my girlfriend, and I was, we were looking at the various grants, and this was a neighborhood grant sponsored by the Denver Foundation. And she said, since you're so involved in voting, your sister was Secretary of State, which is, a person that, does the voting laws for Colorado. Why don't you do a campaign? I said, okay. So we did. And so she named it, which is called Make My Vote Count. And what it is, is to get you registered, make sure you're registered, but it's also voter education.
Mm-hmm.
And we have found out through doing the grant that when people were educated about the amendments that were in front of them, about their candidate, they were more likely to vote. And so this is going to be an ongoing campaign. So this year in 2025, we have the state election. So we're going to be voting on a new governor, new Secretary of State, new Attorney General, and new Treasurer. So once again, we're going to go to marginalized communities and educate them on just voting and what are the rights of voting. And if you've been in prison, you can vote. A lot of people didn't know that. So we have partnered with the clerk and recorder of Denver. His name is Paul Lopez.
Nice.
So that is what that campaign is about.
Awesome. That sounds like another partnership too. I can think of some other organizations besides Sister to Sister where you could actually do some collaboration with some of the Denver, Colorado organizations to help you all along that way. And again, we'll talk offline on that too. So, Miss Pat, thank you for joining us on Excel Sister to Sister podcast. I'm so glad that you were able to find the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much. Like you said, it's about collaborating and about lifting each other up as Black women. We, as sisters, we may not be blood sisters, but we're sisters in love and in Christ. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to tell my story.
Absolutely. And for our audience today, we hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode. Thank you for listening to Sisters Excel podcast. This podcast is for everyone and especially Black women and girls from all walks of life, where we focus on standing together, building communities of sisterhood, and realizing endless potential. Our mission is to advance equity in all aspects of Black women and girls' lives through community, vital education, scholarship, social connectivity, emotional support, networking, and forums to showcase their creativity in a global environment. Our purpose is to extend authentic sisterhood throughout the world through nurturing communities wherein Black females are respected, recognized, encouraged, and supported, and loved, enabling them to thrive. Thank you for sitting down with us, and remember to live your life to inspire and to be inspired.